it gets thrown around a little bit, but at least looking at the October stuff, it was pretty true to what we've experienced. So with that, we will transition to. I know we were talking about Hurricane Michael just a little bit. We do want to get tweets of the week because we haven't done that in a long time. But Chris, you were able to pull up some footage or some old archive photos of the Florida coastline and then kind of do a comparison to what it currently looks like. And I don't think we've really had a opportunity to discuss the dynamics of Hurricane Michael here on the show. I know we did a special show Wednesday night, and Thursday night I think we were all so tired we just kind of just zoned out for a little bit and just took a night off. So this is our first show back together talking about this, but this was a Category 4 hurricane, Chris.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm not even saying a lot of times when we're talking about hurricanes, we're talking about the water aspect, and we did have the storm surge aspect with Hurricane Michael. But I feel like this is the first time in a very long time that we actually had to deal with the wind aspect, those damaging winds from a hurricane over a long period of time. And some of the photos that you've seen, Chris, we really saw Category 4 damaged winds down in the Panhandle of Florida. Uh-oh, you went mute, Chris.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. But anyways, yeah, I started a couple nights ago downloading some of the raw imagery NOAA provides. After I think it's every storm since like Isabel in 2003, I think it was. Don't hold me on the year of the storm, but I know it was like 2003. So basically every hurricane since then, you can look at the after images and really high resolution. So that's something I've been working on for the last couple of days, really hard. I'm going to share my screen here just so I can show you guys kind of what Scotty was talking about with some of the before and after. I got Mexico Beach, Florida pulled up here, and you can see the before and kind of get a feel for it. Small beach town, probably something along the lines of, Folly, maybe a little bit bigger scale than Folly. Not a whole lot of big buildings. I think there was don't hold me to this also, but I think there was a local ordinance in town where you couldn't have any buildings over 3 or 4 stories. So not a lot of, big time commercial development like we see in the Grand Stream, especially in Myrtle Beach. But just to zoom in here, I'll go down here to the area around 24th Avenue. There's 25th Avenue here. And just for example, this little area right here has really caught my eye on some of the post-storm imagery. You can see this big forest right here, right where my cursor's at. And, this is probably pine, live oak, stuff like that, stuff you normally see, coastal areas right off the beach. But here, I'm going to pull up the after image. And here is the same exact place. And, just analyzing it, it's absolutely remarkable to see the damage, how, just how widespread it is. Storm surge is one thing, and then you got Cat 4, Cat 5 winds on top of that. So, who knows what the final numbers are going to be as far as storm surge, but, 8 to 10 feet possibly, maybe more, with, 150 mile an hour winds on top of that, sustained with higher gusts. I mean, that's like an EF3, EF4 tornado damage right there I'm looking at. And some of that's almost, EF4, EF5 damage because there's literally nothing left. And that's probably, mainly to do with the wind. But just looking inland, like that same forest is littered with debris from all the homes that it destroyed, on the beach. And
I remember that from Hugo in '89 here, and it was like that here, where just the surge and the winds just drove it as far inland in the estuaries and marshlands as possible. It was insane.
And go ahead, Scott.
Chris, I was going to say, you have been out on the plains chasing tornadoes, and I know you've had the opportunity to visit Joplin, and as have I. And I wasn't there on that May afternoon in 2011 in Joplin, Missouri, but I remember seeing photos, and I remember going back to, I was back in Joplin just a few years ago, and I can only imagine, I can only equate this wind damage to those of Joplin and Moore, Oklahoma, these EF5 tornadoes that just ravaged those communities and nothing left. And I look at these images and they're just very eerily similar to me. This is this is EF4, EF5 tornado damage on a widespread scale. You know, with tornadoes, the damage is in pockets of places, but this is widespread, and it's just fascinating to me that this is, I think, the first image that a lot of folks are seeing of what wind can really do when we get these powerful storms to move through.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, the power of water is one thing. You know, you get 8 to 10 feet of water that's just coming in. And I know I've checked the Twitter feed of Mark Sudduth, amazing hurricane chaser. And I think we're going to have him on the show coming up. But, you know, he said what he saw was really incredible. He's never really seen before. He equated it to it, you know, basically storm surge being injected by like a jet engine as it came on shore. You know, there was no wave action. I actually saw some of his video, and there was no wave action. The only thing I can probably hypothesize with that is there's just so much velocity pushing the water. There's no chance for it to get any kind of chop or any kind of wave. You know, the wind's just blowing that hard. I mean, but like you said, this is EF4, EF5 tornado damage. I mean, all these places right here, there used to be houses. I looked at this area last night comparing GIS data, and just this little area that I'm sharing my screen right here, there's 2 homes that remain. One is right here where my cursor is, and the other is up here. I didn't really count the multifamily stuff because it's just built differently, but all these homes in here are gone. I mean, they're absolutely gone.
Yeah.
And looking at the before. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sure.
I was going to say, Weather Channel did a good write-up about this with building codes and some of these buildings being older before codes were strictly enforced. And so going forward, it's going to be a real question of resiliency for the coastal areas and how they're going to rebuild. But one thing I wanted to address with these pictures is the death toll. Now, I know it's an uncomfortable topic, but it's an important topic as well. The last I looked, we were at up to 18. Is that number still there, or is it higher now?
I think it's pretty close ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That last I saw, I haven't been checked in too hard today, and like I was saying with this little general area right here that I was checking, the other night I was doing some GIS stuff, and where my cursor's at right here, this little side street that goes down to where this house used to be at the end, from let me zoom back in here. Sorry, from basically where my cursor is all the way to the left to the waterfront here, there was 39 homes. Of those 39 homes that were there, there's only 2 left. And one being right there and the other being right there. That home was built in 1965. That home was built in 2012. The average year of those homes construction that were demolished was 1971. So the building code was quite different then. And, I'm going to keep digging at it just to, try to get a scope of, basically large scale, some of things to really try to put together, what we can do better from communication, forecasting and stuff like that to come to the general public, people that really need to know this. When storms of this magnitude happen, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say this, but if you're along the coast and one of these houses are destroyed, your chance of survival is very slim, and that's just something that we need to communicate. It's not, I know it's a sensitive topic, but it's not overhyping, sensationalizing. It's the fact.
No, you're right. It's a real deal. With this storm, there's no overhyping it. It was going to be catastrophic either way. The best words you could get out there were to emphasize how severe it was going to be. I mean, really, that's all we could do. We had to take the gloves off on this one. It was just a bad situation all the way around.
Yeah, and I can remember from Charlie in 2004. Charlie was, I can't remember exactly. I think it was either a high-end Cat 2 or low-end Cat 3, and it went through rapid intensification as it approached the Fort Myers area down in Southwest Florida, and it was basically Cat 5, right at Cat 5, just like Michael was at landfall. And seeing these storms, how they intensify so quick. It's happened before, and it's going to continue to happen. And what's really maybe stood out to me more than anything is we always talk about the models. None of the models had this thing at 919 millibars at landfall. I know 2 days before landfall I saw 940, and I kind of chuckled. But looking back on it, it's like, wow.
I was looking up the death toll. The USA Today's latest article, which came out at 5:30 this afternoon, has the death toll now to 33.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. She just sent me a message also. Melissa Griffin from over at State Climatology. Yeah, 33. It's awful.
So that is 23 folks from Florida died from this, and then the additional 10 from different states, which 3 of them were here in North Carolina, and I know there were several deaths up in Virginia from the flooding. So, but guys, looking at this, and we're going to get to tweets in a week in just a second. The some of the mainstream media, they talk about this come without warning or whatever. We've heard that jargon numerous times, but in all honesty, Michael just over the weekend, last weekend was a tropical depression, and then it made landfall on Wednesday as a Category 4, almost 5 hurricane. Michael developed pretty quickly. And Shay, you talking about rapid intensification. This storm really went through that, and we can only really contribute that to a favorable environment. But the Gulf of Mexico, those waters were really warm, and that helped fuel the storm.
No, you're exactly right. NHC barely had this coming as a hurricane at 5 days. As time started to go on, every 12 hours, we were seeing the numbers going higher. We saw a hurricane with potential Category 1, higher Category 1, and then 12 hours later we see a low-end Category 2. Another 12 hours we're seeing high-end Category 2. And all of a sudden it's major hurricane within 3 days, and there's a lot of factors to that. First of all, upper shear in the atmosphere a lot relaxed. Once it got north of the Western Caribbean and out of that upper shear environment, then the vertical stacking was allowed to really grow around the storm. It took a little while. It took quite some time to get a closed eye wall right before landfall. So there was at least one quadrant that was open on that eye wall, mainly the southwest quadrant. But when it moved north in between Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, it moves over what's called the loop current. And the loop current is an ocean gyre, which is a constant spin motion, and it's constantly turning the waters there. It's also the warm water conveyor belt for the Gulf Stream, the beginnings of that, which come around the south tip of Florida. So you have a lot of warm water coming up from below and coming to the top, which is constantly, it's constant feed of surface waters. We call those thermohaline currents. And so you have that going on. There was a little bit of cool water upwelling in the northeast quadrant of this ocean gyre, which for one night, the winds stalled at, I think, at about 110 miles per hour. So we kind of got, I would say we kind of got lucky there, because if it had continued to increase rapidly on the wind speeds, we probably would have had a Category 5 at landfall. But that's pure speculation. There was a slight cool area of cool water upwelling along that northeast quadrant of the loop current. But once it got to the north of that, those waters were unstirred, untapped for pretty much the entire summer. We really didn't have anything. Usually we get storms that come across, or cold fronts that drop down and sort of cool the waters and churn them up, or some direction of wind that will do that. But the water was very warm. You're talking 82 to 86 degree water. That's very deep. So you're talking 200-300 meters deep. So that was a major source of fueling for the storm as it lifted north out of the upper shear environment over warmer waters. And there you go. Once that eye wall started to close off there in the last 24 hours and really get a core and a secondary wall, that was it. I mean, it blew up. So yeah, very unfortunate. But the NHC forecast tried to tune every single day. There was always this thought that there was going to be a rapid intensification process. We just weren't sure to what degree. And that's a topic of great study right now in the tropics discussions and tropical studies, for that matter. So, it's a constant science being learned from. And the thing is the word was put out, plenty of time for folks to know that there was a storm coming that was going to be of some great magnitude. Even in Category 1, we've seen Category 1 hurricanes. Even Florence had made landfall. What kind of impacts could that have? The only good thing that we had going throughout the storm was that it was going to be on the move. It wasn't going to be a stalling storm. So we're lucky there. But it sure did a huge footprint of damage from that panhandle of Florida all the way up through the Carolinas and even parts of the mid-Atlantic region.
Jared, I think it was that Tuesday night or something after we did our show, you and myself and I think Chris, we watched the 11 p.m. advisory come in, and we were just at awe as Michael was approaching the panhandle, just how it continued to gain strength so close to the coast. Normally we see the opposite.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. But again, as Shay said, man, those waters were deep. They were warm. And it had nothing stopping it. Again, I was watching when we were watching the landfall on Wednesday. I had I had a AWIPS 2 up with the geostationary lightning mapper up, and we were seeing lightning strikes. We were seeing flashes all within the eye wall right up to landfall, and then even a little bit afterwards.
Yeah,
and
South
it did not stop.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
you got to remember to mention the mesovortices, and that's a big word to throw out here to the viewers. But mesovortices are basically swirls within the eye wall. So normally you think of an eye wall as just being this round sort of wall of clouding and winds that are all going in a specific direction. But then what you get is, as the storm is intensifying rapidly, it's undergoing rapid cooling aloft, and the thunderstorms and the updrafting are to such a degree from the surface up through the middle that you get swirls around the sides of the eye wall, and then the eye wall becomes entrained with these things. And so these little mesovortices really pack a punch. They actually can show wind gusts much higher than the sustained winds of the actual hurricane numbers, and that does a lot of shredding and ripping. Those spawn a lot of large-scale, fast-moving tornadoes right under the eye wall right there along land, which is probably the majority of some of the damage is done down there, right around that eye wall, and there's mesovortices that are just rotating within the eye wall and tearing things up.
Yeah, Shay, I have it up on my screen. I have it up on my screen. If Shay, if you want to kind of highlight and talk about the mesovortices, we seen this kind of like a pentagonal shaped eye for a little bit, and that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I could. I don't know if Jared has a second to, or maybe Chris. One of the 1 minute goes imagery shows that really well. I can pull that up in a second. But what you're seeing there is a rather asymmetrical eye wall. What it appears to be. Now, if on visible satellite, it looks rather symmetrical, but you can see the bulging inside of the storm with those mesovortices. Now, what you don't see are singular rotations going on around that eye wall. But just think of this thing as a wobbling band of tornadic or rotational activity within straight line winds, constantly running, aiming down. The winds are basically just coming right down to the surface, blasting everything in its path, and then you get rotations within that. So each one of these little bulges is a mesovortice that is really just doing a lot of damage. Now I think this was before landfall though, right? Yeah, I can barely see the outline of land. And this is also an eye wall replacement cycle stage right here that you're looking at. So some of that can just be tuned to the eye wall trying to restructure itself, and maybe not so much of the mesovortice action, but there is, I think Chris has got it up right now, and you can see that better on visible satellite. As he got closer to land, those really stood out more, and you can see it here. I've got another one that shows it a little bit clearer, but the eye wall is a little bit tilted at this point, but you can, inside of that, there's individual rotations going on. So it's a really unique feature. It shows very powerful winds going on. That's a sign of a very powerful hurricane or a super typhoon in the Western Pacific.
And I wonder if we can get the imagery of the scar that it left, because I know that there was some questions over whether that was just a well-placed cirrus cloud or something like that, but it was confirmed. It left a 30-mile wide scar in the Florida Panhandle. Now, tornadoes leave scars all the time. We're used to that. But this thing left essentially a 30-mile wide tornado damage scar in the Panhandle. Just really just mind-blowing when you see this. And that, again, that just owes itself to the power of this storm. And and we neglect South Georgia at our peril, because Tallahassee was issuing extreme wind warnings all the way into southwest Georgia for 110-mile-an-hour sustained winds.
Yeah, Jared, I got it pulled up right here. This is all the post-storm imagery, but I mean, where my mouse is at, you can clearly see it from Mexico Beach all the way in toward Overstreet, and just that streak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that we're used to seeing in Joplin, in Greensburg.
Absolutely.
And this time it's a much larger scale.
So let's see. Let's back it up. Here's right there at landfall. You can see those things swirling around the eye. Back it up and do it again. There's a singular loop there. I don't know if it's going to work now. Murphy's Law.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can tell you guys something I'm actually kind of curious in to see the final numbers. I'm just curious how much forest is going to be totally destroyed from this, because just like I still got the screen share up here, and just seeing so many. I mean, everywhere you look, all the trees are broken, and one of the crazy things is, I'll share this one image of this neighborhood here. This is in Callaway, just like east southeast of downtown Panama City. But you see this neighborhood here. And most all the homes have taken some kind of damage, roof damage, but all the pine trees are snapped. They're snapped 10, 20 feet off the ground. You can see kind of, let me see if I'm finding you guys are really good. Kind of right here, you see these shadows. And just in the shadows from what's standing left of the, the trunk versus the rest of the tree that's just been snapped, 20 feet off the ground, laid over. That's really incredible to see.
I remember after Hugo here in Charleston, it was the first time I'd ever seen the sun set on the actual horizon through trees, because they were all matchsticks, and you could just see the sunlight going all the way down. It was pretty intense. But yeah, so I know we're starting to get towards 9:15, Scotty. I'm not sure what you guys want to continue on Michael, but I could go ahead and do my tweet of the week, which is right on target.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, good segue. So this is one of the, in fact, let me go back to this one. This is Mark Sudduth. We talked about him earlier. He's going to be coming on our show in December and talk about his experience down here. Now, this is one of the pictures he took. And he said somebody's wind tower, weather flow, did not make it. So US 98 east of Tyndall Air Force Base. And you can see this. This is a deployed weather observation tower. And this was deployed by the University of Florida in partnership with our company, Weatherflow. And we strategically put these out just ahead of storms. Once we get a good idea where the eye is going to make landfall, usually within probably 12 to 16 hours. I mean, we have to wait until we're absolutely sure. We did it for Harvey and got some really good eye data. This one was going to be dead in the eye to be able to get some really good data from it. However, you see what happened to it here. It's laying across the highway, bent up and torn to shreds just about. This is what it looked like before. This thing's about 40 feet high. It weighs 6,000 pounds. And here it is. So the funny thing is, look where it's positioned here across the highway, and look where it's positioned here about 50 to 60 feet away from the highway. So you can see that how powerful the storm is when it's able to blow a weather station, an observation tower like this, 50, 60 feet to the north during an east eye wall wind. So that again furthers or suggests that those mesovortices, or that rotational track around the eye wall, is something to be dealt with. And that just being able to throw something 6,000 pounds all the way over there across the highway and destroy it is just another testament to show what the homes went through and all the structures there.
Definitely so. And kind of correlating with the Michael theme, Jared, do you have yours pulled up?
Yeah, I do. I sure do. So this comes to us from Waffle House, which, FEMA uses Waffle House as a determination of how bad a disaster is. Waffle House closed in Panama City, but they were not down very long. They rolled in their food truck, and this one corrects the address, but this is incredible. They roll in their food truck, free food to help out, help people out, help them as they recover, and I just love this hashtag: scattered, smothered, and recover. Like, isn't that cool? Like, Waffle House is so cool. Like, that was always a treat growing up, and like, they're just what they do for storms. I mean, they have a whole storm center. I think we've used that as a tweet of the week before on here. They have a whole storm center. They monitor this very closely, and they have meteorologists on staff. Easily the best meteorologist job ever. Sorry, National Weather Service. But I mean, this is just cool. Like again, this is so many things you hear, about, you might hear about malfeasance or anything like that, but this is a pure example of good right here. And they just pull right in front, and it's like only the S is left. The rest of the sign is blown out. But they pull up and they're serving people, and it's really fantastic. Love stuff like this. I hate that it happens, but they're ready. I love this kind of preparedness.
Yeah, their sign looks like something off of Wheel of Fortune.
That's true. Well, a little teaser there. We may be hearing a little bit more about the Waffle House Index as it looks like maybe beginning of next year in January, something like that. We're gonna have some folks on from the Waffle House to tell us all about the Storm Center and what they do for communities before and after storms. So I was really excited to receive that email today from Pat Warner, who is with the Waffle House. So Pat said, I'm still in the Storm Center right now. We're covering for Michael. Let's talk next week and get something on the books. So we are looking forward to having representatives from the Waffle House Owners Show, hopefully in the next couple of months. So that is exciting. Chris, I see you have yours pulled up, so we'll go to you.
Absolutely. So my tweet of the week's going to come from guys base hunters chasing Scott Peak and Colt Forney. Big, huge fan of them. Definitely a huge fan of Colt because of his photography, as you guys can see here. But, they were down and, chasing Michael. And this was taken from Tyndall Air Force Base. Colt shot this, 14 millimeter wide angle shot, standing right in the middle of the hurricane, the eye of Michael, full sunshine. And as he says, we heard thunder a couple times in the eye wall and could hear the roar of the wind around us. A very surreal experience. And I think this is around Highway 98 that goes down toward Mexico Beach. But I mean, just look at this. It's absolutely gorgeous and deadly. I mean, it's just so many things all wrapped into one.
I saw, I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. And probably a lot of folks who are joining us tonight probably seen the video floating around on social media of the guy who was taking a kind of like a selfie video in the eye. And, I've always said I wanted to be in the eye of a hurricane, but I don't think I would want to have been in this eye.
Now, they also said in another video, one of the storm chaser videos out of Texas, really intense video of them showing them in the eye wall there in Panama City. And stuff had already cracked up, broken their windshield. They were getting nailed from behind. They were just sitting ducks out there and just shrapnel going by over 100 miles per hour, just flying by them. And one of them actually said during the feed, my ears just popped. So pressure dropping significantly from the outer eye wall to the inner eye wall down to 900. It bottomed out at 919 millibars. That's really, really low. That's the third strongest storm to hit the United States ever. Based on pressure alone. So that's significant. And that's what happens in the eye. I mean, the pressure is the lowest it can be. It's, and it was really strange. There's no wind. And so you have, really calm winds and sunny skies. It's pretty eerie.
Yeah. I mean, to follow up on that, Shay, like we look at these storms, like, I saw a lot of those videos too, and I shared across my first personal Facebook page. And a couple of my friends be like, oh, that's a doctor video. They sped the video up and it's like, no, I know these guys. These guys are legit. They're using professional equipment. That video is not sped up. It's just, I don't know if we've had a hurricane this intense since social media became what it is today and technology. You take your iPhone and record 4K video with it. So, just seeing that kind of technology with the hurricane, I just don't think we've ever seen before. So, and maybe some of these videos, while dangerous, absolutely to capture, can be used in the future to help people prepare for the kind of impacts they may see from these strong hurricanes. Yeah.
Mark Sivert he does a pretty good thing with GoPros, and he just straps them to a really strong structure and gets that video feed and tries to get somewhere safe. But Josh Morgerman is one to follow for those guys out there. He goes right into super typhoons in the Philippines and you name it, Thailand and anywhere that he can get some strong feed. I mean, there's some extreme chasers out there, but I think some of these guys that came in from Texas and other areas to chase the storm, I think they were pretty scared, man. I really do. They sounded like it.
I would have been. No bones about it.
Yeah, this is not something that you can just drive away from and be okay. I mean, this is not just it's not a small point on a map. It's not a small tornado. It's not a small meso. It is you are in it. You are in it until it's over. There is no driving west, east, north, or south. And honestly, I mean, watching some of these chaser feeds, it's a miracle none of them got killed.
I'll second that, Jared. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad everybody's okay. And when you chase, you take risk, and that's all part of it, and whatever you feel comfortable doing within reason, I guess. But I'm really surprised no one got injured, and thankfully, like you said, And chasing a tornado across the plains is one thing because, you know, as a chaser, you always have an out. You always have like 2 outs, really. And, you know, just that way you don't get in any kind of trouble. But, you know, with a hurricane, if you're going to chase a hurricane and want to see the eye, you've got to experience it. I mean, you've got to get in the middle of the hurricane. You've got to go through the eye wall. And with this hurricane, like we were talking earlier, and let's say EF4 and EF5 damage along Mexico Beach. And, you know, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and I don't think we've had we haven't had a hurricane in the social media era. We did have Harvey. I mean, Harvey was the first major of the social media era last year. That one made landfall at night, so you didn't really get to see the full impact of it. But we haven't had one like this in a very long time, and I hope we don't for a very long time, because I don't wish that on anybody.
And this is a neutral. Don't forget, this is INSO neutral right now. So we're not in El Nino or La Nina. We're in the middle. So we still have yet to see what a full potential La Nina can do for the tropical Atlantic basin in the next few years, whenever that does occur. So, yeah, we'll see. I hope that we don't have a hyperactive season. This season definitely has seemed to pan out a little bit higher than normal as far as intensity and landfalls. So
only takes one.
Yeah, it only takes one, but we've gotten 2. So
yeah. Scotty, I think we got you. We got your tweet of the week up.
Yeah. So Chris was talking about Texas. If he wasn't following yesterday, another big weather story was the catastrophic flooding that happened just outside of Austin, Texas. This is from Brad Souter, who is a morning meteorologist there in the Texas area. There was a bridge that collapsed yesterday, and this was a main thoroughfare into Kingsland, Texas. So I'll roll the video here of the Llano River and watch the water. And there you see the bridge just getting washed away. There was a comparison photo on social media. I didn't share because I'm not sure if it was if it was verified, but if it was showing the difference between the river yesterday and the actuality. And it was that river, if that photo was right, had to be up some 30, 40 feet above.
That's crazy, man. That was a huge surge. I mean, that's concrete and rebar being ripped apart there. Yeah.
So
wow,
a lot of flooding down in the Texas area. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, to add with that, Scotty, I've actually been over that bridge. One of my best friends lives in Round Rock, just north of Austin. I usually go out there in springtime, go fishing at Lake Buchanan and LBJ Lake, which is Lyndon B. Johnson, which is, it feeds Lake Travis, out in the hill country, and that's where that is. And I can remember actually driving across that bridge. The water line is usually 30 feet below that bridge, and then seeing it gone, it's like, wow. And I know one of my other friends I follow on, I'm trying to pull it up here real quick while we're on the subject. Trisha, she's a storm chaser out there and storm spotter with NWS Austin. But I know she tweeted earlier about Lake Travis. It had come up like 30 feet in 24 hours. And I just can't even imagine that.
Yeah, it was our friend Ashley Morris. I don't think her area was affected by this per se, but I know it was close enough that she had her eyes on it. So hopefully all the folks there in Texas are being able to recover from that. But again, some crazy stuff going on around the country. And one last thing about Michael, and when you were talking about the hurricane season, and Shay, I think you brought up a good point about, we haven't even really been in La Nina yet. Last year, we had 3 significant hurricanes that their names were retired. I think it's safe to say that Florence and Michael will be retired. For us as a country, as meteorologists, where the hurricane season was fairly quiet, for a good amount of years. The last 2 years have really slapped us in the face, and it's kind of scary to see what may be in store over the next few years.
Yeah, it was definitely a little over 10 years, almost 12 years before any major hurricane made landfall since 2005. And so, it's not one of these things you say, oh, when it rains, it pours, it'll be over soon and the cycle will be done. It really is indicative of things to come, not to scare folks or anything, but we're seeing larger events with higher amounts of rainfall and flooding. This was a combination of both. it's a good thing it was on the move. But these are the kind of things we got to look forward to, folks. I mean, we're getting some more powerful storms overall in intensity and rainfall amounts. That's almost a fact at this point. We're seeing it as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely so.
Yeah, Scott, if you got my screen up here, here's the pictures I was talking about from Lake Travis. I mean, that's 24 hours difference.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Some crazy stuff. Well, guys, we'll start closing out tonight's show. We appreciate you guys watching. A big thank you to Sandy Duncan again for joining us from the Farmer's Almanac. As always, you can listen to the rebroadcast of this on our podcast or watch it on YouTube by tomorrow. Hopefully that'll all be ready to go. Next week, we have Rob Fowler joining us. He'll be our guest for, I think it's the 24th, October 24th. And then October 31st, we're actually taking a break, a much-needed break, I think, for a lot of us here. It's been a very busy 6 weeks or so. October 31st, obviously Halloween, so we're going to be taking Halloween off. But I do believe that we are going to have a special show that we recorded earlier this year, myself and Chris Jackson and James Brierton was able to attend the Science Festival in Gastonia, and we were able to do some interviews with different guests. And so I think James is going to be premiering that on Halloween night. So we will have some content. We just won't be live. We're going to be off that night. And then we're going to November. As we look forward to that, we have some great guests coming on. Melissa is coming on to talk about Kokoros and the climatology and rainfall from the last two hurricanes in South Carolina. We're also going to be talking about the red tide that's been affecting portions of Florida. And I know we can bring up, how Michael may have influenced that and Tropical Storm Gordon. So some good shows coming up in the month of November. And then December, we are booking as well. Mark Sudduth will be on to talk about his chase of Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Michael. So some busy times coming up. But as always, we welcome your suggestions, either show topics or guests, and we'd love to reach out to them to book those shows for you. So for everyone here in the Carolina Weather Group, we hope you have a great weekend. Stay warm out there. It's going to get chilly over this weekend, so it's going to be a shock to everyone's system, I believe.